Just fell in love and had an instant connection with the chapel, with Mary's work, with the whole being and her kind of thinking around clay, around creating three-dimensional reliefs, wall panels, and in many ways I related to her in that she worked with a multidisciplinary type practice with different materials. So even though her main material was clay, she kind of branched out on other materials.
And a few things that you brought up there around, obviously, the similarities in you both working with patterns, both working with clay, different cultures. There is this sense of universality to your work and also Mary's work. And also in the sense of your commission, which we'll have a look at later, the orb. Again, with this sort of orb circular pattern, again, there's this sort of universal feeling. I wonder if you feel like with using virtues, are they universal to you? Do you think they're universal around the globe? Is that why you sort of
Yeah,
use them?
I've always, from my early stages of my work, I've always been drawn to the spherical form. And for me, it's a very motherly and earthly form, like being pregnant or, the earth, Mother Earth. And so, yeah, spiritually, I've always been connected. And I do work with other shapes and forms, but I always like the clay go back to the spherical form. Depending on what's in the earth, or what kind of minerals affects the colour or the texture of the clay. And each one has its own kind of personality. And depending on how confident I am with the clay when I'm feeling it, is how complex I'll carve the design or how enjoyable it'll be to carve the piece.
And with your choice of clay, as you were saying, there's, in your commission, obviously you used Compton clay, and I heard it was Compton clay 1 and Compton clay 2
Yes.
you used. How did you find working with that? What were the sort of possibilities of that and the story behind it as well?
Well, it was a bit nerving because when you set your mind to do something, and then there's a kind of like the idea of a commission, which you're working towards, so it becomes a bit more stressful because you want it to work even more. With the virtues, each clay, if something didn't work out, it doesn't matter too much. But when you're working, I was a bit nervous. But I did various tests with the clay before doing the commission. And I did various mixing ingredients with Compton too, because that was the clay I was really unsure about. But Compton 1 felt beautiful from the onset. It felt very plastic and very creamy. But I wasn't sure if it was going to work the way I work with sculpture. So I added some grog and mollicite into the clay just to strengthen it, so then it would stand the thick surfaces and the thin surfaces. So.
And I wondered if you could show us a little bit about your process from these. I find it mesmerising that you can create these flat forms and these flat patterns, and then you immediately visualise them as 3D pieces.
Yes, for me it's really exciting because I like the different stages that I go through. And there's 4 different stages I go through for making my work, and each one I treat separately, or different mindset, a different space that I personally have to be in. So the design process, which is very enjoyable, and it's just a free flow, like a writer writing, ideas and jotting them down. So I'm like jotting my ideas of the different designs in my design book, and the variations of that one design into another design, and then you like elements of that, and then you put those together. So that is a really playful, very creative and spontaneous thought process. And then the second process is a bit more where I concentrate on making the shape in clay, and because the forms are solid or very thick-walled, you have to be careful that you don't put any air bubbles as you're constructing it. With these. So each coil is a bag of clay, so as you're putting each coil onto the shape, you've got to make sure you don't actually trap any air bubbles. People always say, do you make mistakes, and do you go in the wrong direction, and do you and I tend to say no, because before I start carving it, I kind of work out and visually kind of map out how I'm going to carve that whole entire piece, how the edges are going to work, so when I start carving into it, it's just a total meditative process. So I'm just enjoying, I kind of know what one section of the pattern is going to work with the other. So by doing that at the beginning, eliminates any problems and makes it just
Yeah.
so I can have my music on, I can,